But it was the first time a group of filmmakers consciously took the space-time continuum of what was going on cinematographically and put it all together into one package. They didn't invent anything. They didn't do anything new. All they did was, like any good student, put it all together and make sense of it. Now we're very lucky, okay, 60 years later, to have had such great geniuses like Godard, Truffaut, Rene, Varda, etc., have done this. But what really made the French New Wave, and what makes it important today, still, is that it was a group of young filmmakers who pieced all this work together and made films about people living regular lives. Now, Pierre Lecoux is not exactly a regular life story, just to be fair, okay? But they did this in such a way that the films are still relevant, they still resonate, they're still important today. But also, and this is where they intersect with Indian independent cinema today. They told the big bad machine of Hollywood, stay at home. Hollywood, a lot of people don't know this, but in the 1960s, Hollywood goes into a crisis of self. Okay? Golden age of Hollywood, the 40s, the 50s. The studio system is at its zenith. The big, giant production is well underway. Cleopatra, Bridge over the River Kwai, Zhivago, all these films are getting made. But in the early 60s, the late 60s, the whole thing falls apart. Okay, if you're interested in cinematographic history, check out a book called Easy Riders and Raging Bulls, which is about your friend Steven Spielberg. The guy made Star Wars, what's your name? George Lucas. I always forget Lucas' name. I don't know why that is. Scorsese, Coppola. But in the early 60s, the big producers of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the big producers of the Warner Brothers studio, they're all getting old. They've been around since the silent era, these guys. They're all into their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're losing their grip on two things. One, the stories that resonate with the audience. Two, in the 1940s, there was an invention that really shook the ground. Now, it's not that surprising to today, but back then, it was a real game changer. Television. People were staying at home. You know, some of you in here may recall when you watched movies, you got to go and see a newsreel, a B picture, and your feature. My dad always talks about it. He said when he was a kid, on Saturday, his uncle picked him up at 2 o'clock, got home at 10 o'clock, and he saw 3 movies, including a cartoon or 2. Okay, television changed that. You now had to just go to the cinema to see one picture. So what happened was people were staying at home, so the studio system started to show a crack in its facade. And people were turning away from the stories and the films that were being shown. Now today, when you look at films from the 50s and 60s, you look at the Bridge over the River Kwai, you look at the Dr. Zhivagos, you don't look at the, Annette and the Mickey Mouse Club crap that they made. Because that stuff doesn't stick around. It's gone the minute it comes out because it's just pop culture. And they were flooding the cinemas with that. And then suddenly this weird film called Abu the Soup, Breathless, shows up, and nobody knows what to make of this thing. Then all of a sudden, France sends this other film called The Orange and Blues, and everyone's like, why is this stuff really good? Same thing is happening in India today. Bollywood has had a chokehold on the cinema industry in this country for a very long time. But there was an invention that is changing the game. Anyone know what it is?
Digital cinema. Predetermined digital cinema.
The internet. You don't need anything but just an internet connection to watch an esoteric Danish film that was made by 3 guys in a basement that's in ancient Danish. That film will never get distributed in any cinema anywhere, but guess what? It's online. You click it, you find it, you watch it, you love it. Next thing you know, you like it. It's on Facebook, and it's gone viral, and everyone's looking at it. The internet is keeping eyeballs at home. Bollywood producers, if they're not, should be very scared. And what's also happening is that in India we have a youth culture. It's not a baby boom; it's sort of a baby explosion. But over 50% of the country is under the age of 30, right? Guess what? Godard and Truffaut were part of what we call the baby boom generation. They were under 30 when they were making these movies. So you've got 600 million people in this country under the age of 30 with an internet connection. Krish 3, Doom 3 isn't cutting it for them. The young people in this country are as well connected, as interested, and as engaged in the Big Bang Theory as my cousins back in the States. I have the same weird moment where I just feel like an old guy because I have no idea what the Big Bang Theory is about. With my Indian, friends and my American friends. I'm just like, screw it, I'm going to move to Antarctica, I'm going to tank this. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is that this invention is changing things, and the audience today is hungry for a better type of storytelling. That's great for the audience, but guess what? The filmmakers are watching the same stuff that we're watching. They're becoming as worldly, as engaged, as interested, as focused as our friends Godard and Truffaut were back then. And they're making films that are ethnically Indian, about Indian stories, but they're telling 3-act structure from the Americans. They're shooting on the streets like the Italian neorealists. They're editing like the Soviets and the French New Wave. They're using the digital cameras like Dogma in the Danish school cinema in the 1990s. Okay? They're unafraid to go out there and do it. And look at a film like Ship of Theseus. A film like that could have been made in the 1990s, 1980s in this country. But no one would have ever heard of it. Lunchbox, Udon, Kaipoche. There is a real shift going on. And when you look at these moments in history, you always have to go to the roots. Tonight, we have to look at their roots. Because Anurag Kashyap took, and he's a great student of cinema, he has seen everything under the sun. Okay? He knows everything there is to know about films. And he took an incredibly traditional Indian story, right on the heels of Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Devadas, and flipped it. And even worse, just to mess with the Bollywood people even more, he took Dharmender's nephew and put him in the movie. He took Abhay Deol, who is, Bollywood royalty here, and put him in the movie. Okay? So what's happening today, the intersection of Indian and French culture, apart from many other things, is cinema. A great, deep love of the art, and an awareness of its cultural relevance. And like the Nouvelle Vague was a merging time, a collection of different fragments from space-time continuum of cinema, so is that true today for independent Indian cinema. Because when you hear guys like Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, start talking about the relevance of independent cinema, that's important. That's important. And it's also important when films like Miss Lovely are suddenly getting real exposure. It's important when a film like Ship of Theseus is presented by Kiran Rao, because people are paying attention to the important movement that's going on. Sure, Doom 3 is still going to sell out PVR. Okay, sure, Krish 3 is still going to sell out, the multiplex. But a space is opening up on the internet and also in the cinema for these films. So you are all very lucky, and I tell everybody that works in film in this country, whether as an actor or even a viewer, you are very lucky to be living through this time. Because it's actually happening. It's not going to be a tsunami. It's not going to happen and suddenly be revolutionary. It's going to happen slowly at an evolutionary pace, because films take a long time. And if any of you are filmmakers, you know what I mean when I say that? To make. But it is happening. And it is a very, very important and interesting time. And I'll give you an example. The film Udon, made by Vikram Mathwan, is one of the best films I've seen in the last 10 years. Full stop. I don't care what country it comes from. But you know what I like about Nutera? his follow-up Bollywood film, was there was this wonderful, wonderful homage, I don't know if it was conscious or subconscious, to Sajid Rai.